Welcome to Conscious TV with Tom and Ramon. Go over a couple things real quick. Visit the website, of course. Want to thank everybody for their generous donations that have been coming in, and we really appreciate it. Yeah, we definitely, yay. Conscious-tv.com is the website. You can check out all our old archive stuff, and there's some really good information on there. Ramon and I try to keep some of the more current news popping on our news section there, video links, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So stop by and check us out. Ramon, who have we got tonight?
We got someone who has a very interesting story and one that I've looked into myself, but we'll let him talk about it. Stephen Sindoni is an author, filmmaker, and social activist. Stephen spent his time searching for answers to many of his history's unsolved mysteries. He is without a question a real-life Indiana Jones in his quest to uncover the truth. Stephen, welcome to the show.
Right. Thank you very much, Ramon.
Stephen or Stephen? Because I hear it's some people call you Steve. Okay.
Well, it's I like the pronunciation Stephen, but it could be Stephen. I mean, it's either or, tomato, but for today, it'll be Stephen.
All right. You got
cool.
that down. So, Stephen, the Legend of J.C. Brown, that is a fascinating story. So what got you into researching this?
Well, in 2007, Tom, I was just finishing a screenplay. I had written 3 comedies, and I was looking for a challenge, so I went on the internet and I decided to search for any interesting stories that I could write about. And it was then I stumbled upon The Legend of J.C. Brown. It was an excerpt from a book written by Emily A. Frank called California's Mystic Mountain, Mount Shasta. So I became fascinated by the story, and then I decided I was going to spend 2 weeks at the New York Public Library to investigate the legend. Now, for those of you who don't know about the legend, I'd like to take a couple minutes here just to set it up. It's a baffling story about a man by the name of J.C. Brown, who in 1934, at the age of 67, appears in Stockton, California. The old-timer spins a tale about a lost treasure he found 30 years earlier in 1904 while employed with the Lord Cowdray Mining Company of England to the editor of the Stockton Record newspaper. So here he is. This older man shows up in 1934 and to the editor's office in the Stockton Record, and he claims that he has found, a lost civilization. So the newspaper man, the editor, then takes J.C. Brown to meet Harry Noyce Pratt, the curator of the Hagen Memorial Museum. Mr. Pratt then gives J.C. Brown a list of people who might be interested in Brown's story, among those John C. Root, a retired printer. So now John C. Root, the retired printer, who lives at 1784 North San Joaquin Street in Stockton, allows J.C. Brown to use his home, and gradually they organize an expedition which is formed with the purpose of participating in and exploring Brown's caves that he found in 1904, where he claimed to have discovered a tunnel in the Cascades Mountains leading to relics of apparently a lost race.
So now I read that when he was putting this expedition together, that he'd gathered quite a few people together, and that exactly none of these people had to put out a dime. Did he actually? Go into the. What went through there in Stockton and the mystery around the disappearance and all that stuff.
Sure, I'll go through that right now. Well, so for now, the meetings were held at the home of the group's organizer, John C. Root. And J.C. Brown's story originally expanded to such an extent that the meetings were now held twice a day for 6 weeks. The followers grew to about 80 in number, and which included many prominent people. You had the newspaper editor of the Stockton Record, Harry Noyce Pratt, the museum's curator, several scientists, a retired printer, and solid citizens. And many of the followers believed that the cavern held a secret to the lost race and continent of Lemuria. In J.C. Brown then, at the meetings, this is what he states. I'm going to go through that, and then I'll explain about the money, about how much he took or did not take. J.C. Brown now tells the group that, in 1904, he was employed for the Lord Cowdray Mining Company of England. He was hired to prospect for precious metals in the gold-bearing region, and while there, he ran into a section of rock on the face of a cliff, which didn't seem to match the surrounding foundation. While examining the curious stone, he noticed it blocked an entrance to what appeared to be a cave. Brown, a geologist, thought the entire scene was unnatural and began to dig out the mouth of the cave, which is full of debris and vegetation. He began to see that it was not a small cave after all, and after much digging, he found himself in a tunnel which curved downward into the mountain. So here it is now. He finds this tunnel. So equipped with lanterns and miner's paraphernalia, he sets out to explore it. He claims that 3 miles from the mouth of the tunnel, he strikes a cross-section containing gold-bearing ore, and further on he strikes another section where an ancient race apparently had mined copper, he said later. He then told the group that he believed that the other sections outcropped onto some other parts under the mountain. He said the decline continued approximately from where he started 11 miles inside the mountain, and 2,300 feet from the surface is where he claimed he found what he called the village. Now this is the part that's very interesting, guys. He said the streets were laid out in the village. So now he sees this village. He then discovers 2 rooms filled with copper and gold tablets, about 3 and 4 inches in concave, so that one laid inside of the other. The rooms that he found there were literally full of plates, all inscribed neatly, and they were lined with tempered copper and hung with shields and wall pieces made of gold. And he believed that they were using radium to create this because it looked like it was technology that wasn't even used in the 1900s. He said that some of the gold plates he found were engraved with certain drawings and hieroglyphics that probably looked more Egyptian to him at that time. He also found tempered copper spears and other objects made of gold. So it's a major find that he found, underneath the mountain. He then opens other rooms which go into other chambers, and one of the rooms appeared to have been a place of worship. In that room, there were 13 statues made of copper and gold, and a large sun design which protruded like golden streamers. He noticed that the way the objects were thrown around, he had the feeling that the occupants of the underground village had left on the spur of the moment. So apparently, this village that he happened upon was inhabited at the time.
So it seems like it was pretty recent during that time, like maybe 1-2 weeks or a year.
Well, he had the feeling that they might have been there, as he happened upon that little village, and they just, left at the spur of the moment.
So like they heard him coming, and
Exactly, because he was coming with his lanterns. He had his miner's paraphernalia, and he wasn't alone, and which I'll get to later. But then he came upon a very macabre scene. In one long room, they were laid out at angles to the wall, 27 skeletons, which wouldn't be a big deal for most people seeing a skeleton, but the smallest of which was 6 feet 6 inches, and the tallest was more than 10 feet tall.
Wow.
So that's an interesting find, to see skeletons 10 feet tall. Another room, which really must have blown him away, he found an embalmed man and a woman dressed in ornate royal robes, and he believed that they were the king and queen of this race. So here it was, he finds 2 mummified bodies, dressed as though they were royalty in that chamber there. Brown goes on to say he spent, days exploring and studying the hieroglyphics that he had found. He decided to leave the tunnel and its contents exactly as he had found them, and he'd return at a later date. But first he cleverly concealed the entrance of the tunnel, and he marked it on his map exactly where it was on the mountain. So, answer to your question, Tom, he told the group that after the 6 weeks of meetings that they would leave on June 19th at 1 p.m. to go to Mount Shasta to dig out these treasures, and that there were 3 caves in total, and in 2 of the other caves, for the people that would come with him to help catalog the items, he would then make available what were in those 2 other caves for them. So these people sold their possessions. They all were on the bandwagon to go up to Mount Shasta with him. 80 people waited that morning on June 19, 1934 for J.C. Brown at the designated time. He didn't show up. People waited all day. They waited all night. Finally, the following day, they called the Stockton police, and they did an investigation. But no trace of J.C. Brown could be found. He just completely disappeared. The 80 people who waited in vain for him told the police that they believed in the authenticity of his story, and they believed in the existence of the vast tunnel in Mount Shasta that was filled with golden artifacts. So now the police asked, well, how much money did he take from any of you? And the only thing that they could come up with is that while he was in the federal shelter, he had borrowed $5 from one of the men. And when they asked him why he was in the federal shelter, he said, well, if people had known I was a millionaire, then they would kidnap me, for my money. And I had been kidnapped once before. So here it was. He was telling them, hey, I'm a millionaire. I'm incognito. I'm here at my expense. I'm going to take everybody up to Mount Shasta to unearth, this great archaeological find at my expense. And then he mysteriously disappears. So after reading this, I was, intrigued by what I just read. I said, you know what? I wrote down all the clues that I had learned about the legend, and I decided to go to the New York Public Library and spend at least a month to do my own investigation and see if I could solve the 73-year-old mystery surrounding the man known only as J.C. Brown.
And you found something pretty interesting about J.C. Brown, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. Well, the first question that we all have, and I'm going to lay this out as, how my mind worked. I says, okay, I've got 7 or 8 clues. The first question I had to ask Ramon was there a man named J.C. Brown? So I did some digging, and the answer was no. I wasn't able to find anyone in the United States named J.C. Brown. So right there, I says, well, maybe this isn't going to go anywhere. So the next question I asked was, did the Lord Cowdray Mining Company exist? Was there a Lord Cowdray Mining Company? So the funny thing is, I went on Google when I'm at the library there, and I Googled it, and lo and behold, there was a Lord Cowdray Mining Company of England. So now I got my first break there. So my second question I asked Ramon was the company named after the owner himself? Was there a Lord Cowdray, And the answer was yes. So now I had to go and try to figure out, okay, well, there was a Lord Cowdray. Who is this man? Is this the same man who shows up in 1934? I don't know. I know they said the man was in his 60s when he showed up. He said he retired. But the man said he had worked for the Lord Cowdray Mining Company all of his life and waited till after he retired before he came up to Shasta to seek the fortune. So the first question was I had to rule out Lord Cowdray or, make him definitely the guy who was J.C. Brown. But what I learned was Lord Cowdray was born Wheatman Dickinson Pearson, and he was born in July 15th of 1856 in Woodhouse, Yorkshire, England. Now the interesting thing about Pearson, his family was the company started out as an engineering company, and so he was an engineer, just like the man in the legend. But he was an oil industrialist, and he was the owner of this Pearson conglomerate. And so here it is. I have a man who, very prominent man. He was into globalization. He built the Dover Harbor, docks in Halifax, railroads and harbors all around the world. He even built the Sennar Dam in Sudan. But in 1889, Porfirio